light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Love, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy, and alongside me is my good friend Joe Stanley. Welcome, Joe.
Darcy, as always, I love being here with you. We've often talked about being overrun by notable days and weeks and months, which are all very special in their own way. But National Burns Awareness Month, which is now in June, is one that really deserves a mention because it affects so many people. Really, if you get through life without being burnt in some way, then you've done well.
Yeah, you're right, Joe. There's so many kinds of burns from around the home. Chemical, boiling water, fires, explosions, and even chronic sunburn, and there's plenty more.
Well, we've had the amazing Dr. Fiona Wood on the show before, who is the world's leading burns specialist. She's pioneered research and technology development in burns medicine. And, of course, one of her most well-known achievements is spray-on skin. Remember that?
She is remarkable. Yeah. Professor Fiona Wood is one of Australia's most innovative and respected surgeons and researchers. And her own words say everything about what kind of person she is, Joe, which are the quality of the outcome must be worth the pain of survival. Very powerful words indeed.
Yeah, just amazing. And Fiona Woods is, as you'd imagine, Darce, a big advocate for girls and STEM education too. But the focus of the month of June is to spread awareness about the prevention and correct first aid treatment for minor burn injuries, which is 20 minutes of cool running water.
Yeah.
It's great to know what that first aid is.
Yeah, and it's nice to have that in your mind. I remember my beautiful wife getting a serious burn in a restaurant, a glass of boiling water poured on her leg, and you go into panic mode and you think, what can I do? And in fact, all you need to know about burns prevention and education is on the Fiona Wood Foundation website. It's a great place to go.
Yeah, it's really worth a look, and you just never know when you might need that information.
Well, someone who's bursting at the seams with information is our new House of Wellness team member, journalist Jackie Felgate. Good to see you, Jackie.
Hello, Darce. Hello, Joe.
Oh, it's so great to have you, Jackie, on the show.
Now, tell us, what's been making news this week?
Always plenty of news in the world of health, Darce, that's right. And the big news in terms of health right now is psychedelics. Research into certain species of mushrooms and psychoactive plants, along with synthetic drugs like MDMA to help mental health-related illnesses, is really taking off big time. Now, the CSIRO has thrown its credible weight behind it too. Australia's biggest research body has been granted a new licence to work with local medtech companies to improve existing psychedelic products and develop new ones. And some are being developed right here in Melbourne, and so far the research is really promising. So do you think it's time perhaps to drop the stigma?
I think so, big time, Joe. You go back to the 1960s and psychedelics, there was great research into what they were doing with mental health-related issues, and then it was Richard Nixon, the war on drugs. They banned everything. So I'm glad it's coming back. There's some good data coming through on that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's time to drop the stigma because we know that mental health is such a big challenge in our community. And if it's done in clinical trials where it's really safe, it's not like a crazy drug-taking free-for-all, right? So,
one would hope not. One would hope not.
So I think if it's going to help people, why not explore that?
Exactly. And as you say, the trials done here and overseas are strictly controlled in clinical settings. It's not a psychedelic free-for-all. It's a really good thing to investigate. OK, so let's leave the psychedelics to one side for now and talk about medical shortages. It's an ongoing and increasing problem in the bush. While Australia's major cities have plenty of health professionals, figures from the National Rural Health Alliance show there is a persistent crisis happening in regional areas. And fixing the problem was a major campaign promise from both parties at the recent federal election. They promised to spend around $150 million to build infrastructure and lure more health professionals into the country. Hopefully they'll stay true to their word, guys. But can you imagine, you're not well, you're thinking about getting tested for whatever it is you might be feeling, and you just don't because it's too difficult.
Yeah, and we also used to see in the past was that young medical professionals really went to the country communities and built their reputation there. So it'd be fantastic to see that investment happen again. It's much needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just GPs, it's nurses, midwives, pharmacists, dentists. I mean, you're hearing of women giving birth on the side of the road because they can't get actually to any medical care in labour. It's really a travesty that people in our remote areas aren't looked after.
Exactly. Just because you live in a country area doesn't mean you should have less access than what people in the city have. have. Now, I recently told you about a study that proved once and for all that it's best to take off your shoes before entering the home. Well, there are new claims stating that if you have pets or kids, which is all of us here, then cleaning once a week might not be enough. What do you think?
What? Who cleans more than once a week? I barely clean once a week.
I know. I'm the same. But pets shed hair and skin plus trek all sorts of muck inside, and so do our kids. So the word is that twice weekly cleaning is the go. But as you say, who has time for that? Of course, it's a well-known fact that most of the household chores actually fall to women. So, Das, are you getting the brush and spade out? What are you doing?
I need to lift my game seriously, and I'm trying to get the 4 kids to lift their game, which is a massive challenge. We walk into their bathroom, and it's like, are you serious? Can you get out of the shower and leave the area like that? I'm not having much luck, but trying to activate them and myself, I've got to put my hand up as well, is probably a fair call.
Indeed. You do need to do better, because studies have also shown that couples who share the chores equally are happier, and one for you, have better sex lives.
Well, there's a win I didn't know.
I always
Vacuum
say,
more.
in my house, I say foreplay starts with folding the laundry.
Does it?
Yes, absolutely.
We're going on a totally different tack.
No, man, there is nothing more attractive than a man doing my housework for me. I'm like, yes, darling.
Now, Joe, you love fresh food and cooking, but I think you're also the first to admit that you're a bit of a brown thumb when it comes to gardening. Is that correct?
Well, turns out you've got to water plants to keep them alive, but I just can never remember. So it's true, I prefer to leave growing things to the experts, which in my house is my husband. But when it comes to buying healthy ingredients, I love that. I love the farmer's market, going around and smelling the fresh produce and going, this just was grown down the road. I love it.
Well, part of being a great cook or a gardener, I'm told, not from experience, Joe, is knowing how to cut back on your waste. Now, you and I both recycle our soft plastics, and I can't believe this has been the biggest change in our house, the recycling of the compost rubbish, and I'm amazed by how much goes into that little green bin, Joe, on a regular basis.
Well, when you've got 4 kids that you're feeding, including teenage boys,
True.
Oh, my God, I can't even imagine the amount of food you get through. So, yes, it's been a revelation in our house too. You know, I've always wanted to have chooks. I would love that. My sister has beautiful chickens. They have these beautiful personalities, and they're so sweet, and they just frolic around, and they also eat the fruit and veggie waste that comes with home cooking. I would love that.
So why can't you get the chooks?
No, because I don't have a backyard.
Well, that's a fair point. So if you can't have the chooks, the next best thing is to maybe start your own compost, like what Joe and I have been talking about, but on a bigger scale. I have to admit, though, Joe, I'm still a bit confused. I go to the green bin with the coffee or the eggshells, still not 100% sure on.
Tea bags? Are you allowed to, like, if you tore open the bag? And I don't know. To dig up the answers, our plant-powered super foodie, Luke Hines, teamed up with a local expert to break down the facts on composting.
I reckon I do pretty good minimising wastage at home, especially when it comes to the kitchen. I've got some tips and hacks, making sure I make the most of my fresh fruit and veggies. But I definitely know I could be doing more, and I definitely could be doing a whole lot better. That's why I'm rapt to be spending a bit of time in the kitchen with you lot, EDL, because you are a sustainability expert and, in my words, composting queen. So I'm really keen to get our hands dirty today. But to start us off, in its simplest terms, what is composting?
Pretty much what composting is putting all of your food and veggie scraps and all of your grass clippings and garden matter into a compost bin.
That's it?
That's it. It's as simple as that, and it is such an amazing way to reduce your household waste, because about 40% of your household bin is made up with things that could go into your compost bin. So this one move could just pretty much cut your household waste almost in half.
When I was a kid, composting to me was this giant upside-down green bin in the garden full of worms. Kind of terrified of it, to be honest. But you're telling me this is a compost bin?
So we do still have those compost bins in the backyard. You're not that old.
Terrifying.
But this is what we do to keep all of our food scraps in our kitchen before going to that bin outside.
Okay, that takes me to the point. Is this a safe and hygienic way to do it? Because I don't want the kitchen to stink and I don't want mould.
Exactly. So what we used to do is, I don't know, my parents used to have this really old Tupperware container. It was like an ice cream container. That's where all of the food scraps would go. and then it would go outside. There's nothing wrong with still doing that. This is just really a way to make composting a little bit sexy and fun, and it's got what in the top here, this carbon filter. So it means that your food scraps can actually breathe and they can sweat and they can do whatever, but this filter will actually absorb all of those funky smells and stop all of the fruit flies from getting in as well.
What would the impact be nationally if we all did this each and every day?
So by just starting to compost, you're cutting your household waste almost in half. And then at a national level, what happens when all of these kinds of banana peels and things like that go into landfill is they sit next to plastic and they cook and they create this methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas, which is 32 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So that all of those gas emissions equal about 3% of Australia's total greenhouse gas emissions, which is more than the aviation industry.
This is huge. This is really huge. More people should know this information, and I feel like there's going to be people watching this now going, hang on, this doesn't cost me anything. I can do it each and every day. Let's start with real basics. What can go in?
So pretty much we want to keep our compost bin vegetarian. So no meat, dairy, fish, anything like that, because that's when you're going to get those funky smells and odours and probably critters. So let's make it veggie by popping in things like your banana peels. If you're using carrots, you could put the carrot tops in or the peels of the carrots as well. And then it's also a big myth that citrus and onion cannot go into your compost bin. Or I'm here to say that they can definitely go into your compost bin. We just need to be careful we're not kind of throwing in, I don't know, all of the limes from our margarita that we made on the weekend. So just add in a little bit at a time, really. But we need to also think about with composting is we want to get a balance. So it's kind of like making a cake. If you added in too much of these kind of food scraps and organic matter and not enough of your dries, then you're going to get really like a muddy, gross, sloppy mess.
Okay.
Which we don't want.
We don't want that. That turns me off a little bit. Okay.
So then what we need to do is we need to add some browns or some dry matter. So that's things like paper. We can have that at home. You could also add in some of the kind of dry leaves from around the garden. But things that you might already have in your household, loo rolls. Yep. Simple as that. If you've got toilet paper that comes in a wrapper, pop the wrapper in there as well.
During the pandemic, people should have mountains of these at home to use.
Exactly, they definitely do. And then we can also pop in some hair as well. That can go in there. I've probably got more than you, but still, you could put that in there. And then also, I've just got some newspaper and just some naked cardboard.
I make a lot of coffee at home, so is coffee grounds something I could put in there?
Yep, throw them straight into your compost bin as well. You could throw in tea leaves. Just check with your tea bags. Some of them are compostable, some of them aren't.
Okay, so I feel like we've covered off the kitchen really well. In my house, with the amount of cooking I do, this is going to fill up in a day. We've got this full. What next?
Let's go out to the compost bin.
Let's do it. Okay, so we've got our scraps that we had in the kitchen earlier, and we'll just get that in there.
Look at that, you're composting.
Do I get an award now?
So now what we need to think about, we need to go back to that cake analogy. We need to be adding in some brown stuff. We want to put about 1/3 of the food scraps and then 2/3 of the brown things. So that could be your leaves or your newspaper or the loo rolls.
How long do our scraps sit in here before we harvest?
Well, it's a little bit tricky to answer that one because it all depends on your household, how many food scraps you're putting in there, how long. If it's summer, it's going to break down a lot faster than in winter because of the heat. But what you want to do is you want to turn it with something like this. It's like a giant corkscrew so that you're really kind of turning the bottom things to the top and making this really, really nice mixer.
So can we get anything living in here? Any little critters?
So you could get worms in here. So if you're doing the right thing, worms will actually come into here because they will know that there's all of these delicious nutrients for them to eat and they'll come up through the bottom. They're really amazing composters because they chew through everything really, really quickly.
I feel like this is something anybody can do, really achievable and affordable. This wouldn't set you back much.
No, I think this one was about $60 and you could get it from your local hardware.
No excuses, Lottie. I love it. You've inspired me. Now I've got to get into it.
I can't wait to see your compost.
Can't wait. Bring it on. I'll let you know how I go.
Incredible fact that, Joe, that by composting, you're cutting your household waste almost in half.
It's amazing, and I love the analogy of making a cake. You don't throw in too much of one ingredient. It's all about balance, just like life, really, hey?
And I had my question answered around coffee grounds, so they're good to go in.
Yes, along with the brown cardboard centre from toilet rolls. Who would have thought that?
Oh, I didn't know that. Now, I think most people are pretty choosy when it comes to what sort of toilet paper they prefer, Jo.
Really? You mean to use or to compost?
Well, I think to use. I think it's a bit of a window into the soul. And what I mean by that is like recycled toilet paper is made from 100% post-consumer waste, like newspapers or office paper, which is brilliant. So it means less trees have been cut down and less energy has been used in the manufacturing process.
Yes, and I have no idea how many rolls of TP we use in a lifetime, or if we use toilet paper differently from the Americans. But in the US, the average person uses over 100 single rolls, which is about 21,000 sheets every year. Does that sound like a lot
It
to you?
sounds like an enormous amount of toilet paper. I mean, it's only been around 120 years, toilet paper. It used to be sold in individual squares in a box. Did you know that, Jo?
I did not.
People were embarrassed to ask for it by name.
Well, I tell you what, you only have to be caught short without it to realise how lucky we are to have toilet paper, don't you think?
Oh, yes.
You never get that.
An issue that's close to all of our hearts is gender equality in sport. And Jo, encouraging more girls to take up and continue playing sports has been a great passion of yours as well.
Oh, absolutely, Das. It's not just about physical fitness, it's about mental health, it's about your confidence. Girls who are in teams, they learn how to be team leaders and be assertive. And, I mean, across the board, playing sport is so great for girls.
And Jackie, as a TV sports reporter, you help promote the on-screen representation of women in the AFL. How do you think this has encouraged more girls to get into footy?
Well, simply we can't be what we can't see, right? And I remember growing up, we were banned from playing football. It was only a boys' game. And now to watch my 5-year-old start doing Auskick, it's a dream. You know, I distinctly remember being a young kid and being told to get off the oval because I was kicking a footy with my mates who were boys.
It's really sad, isn't it, when you think about it? I've seen it through my daughter Sienna as well. Jo, I know Willow plays junior footy and she's now really passionate about the rowing world. So the benefits of team sport, the fact that we've discouraged girls in the past, it's pretty unfortunate, isn't it?
Oh, it's devastating, I think, and it's an unfortunate fact that physical activity declines significantly for girls once they hit adolescence, way more than it does for boys. A lot of it has to do with teenage girls' body image and how comfortable or self-conscious they feel playing sport. That includes how they feel about the uniforms that they wear.
You were so right, Jo. Remember the International Beach Handball Federation recently came under fire for insisting female athletes wore skimpy, high-cut bikini bottoms. The Norwegian women's team protested, resulting in a change to uniform protocol. It seems ridiculous, doesn't it?
Oh, and at the time, I remember almost every woman I know just celebrating, going, yes, finally we're being listened to and things are changing. And the women quite rightly said being made to wear revealing bikini bottoms made them more uncomfortable and objectified. And the rules now state women must wear tight, close-fitting shorts. And yet the men's handball rules simply say that male players must wear shorts that aren't too baggy. So there's still sexism there, there's some progress, but honestly, why aren't women allowed to wear whatever they want?
Makes no sense at all. The German gymnastics team also ditched the traditional high-cut leotards at the Tokyo Olympics and chose to wear ankle-length outfits. And so change is happening, maybe just not fast enough.
Well, in order to even the playing field when it comes to women in sport, a landmark study is now underway in Victoria. Let's hear first from Professor Claire Hanlon, who's conducting the study, Sarah Stiles from the Office for Women in Sports and Recreation, and Aussie swimmer Sian Whittaker.
Nearly 50% who were surveyed believed that because they were able to wear dark-coloured instead of white pants, or shorts instead of skirts, or longer-length swimsuits instead of shorter swimsuits, it actually encouraged them to stay longer in the sport.
There's been so many revealing uniforms over the years that young women and women have felt uncomfortable in and therefore have had and resulted in body image issues.
Some of the benefits for having flexible sport uniforms for girls is simply that they feel more comfortable and they're going to stay there. And I often think about it in the reverse, which what might the cost be? And reality is, outside of the cost of the uniforms themselves, there really isn't any. There's really nothing to lose by going down this path.
I've never had a choice before on what I can wear, and these new rules, as a swimmer and as an athlete, I can wear what I want to in the pool.
It's that choice, because not one size fits all. It's like not one style fits all.
With this information, what we're saying is whether you're a sports club, you're a school, whatever that might be, have a consideration of how is that impacting the girls, and can you make their lives feel that little bit more comfortable and their life in sport a little bit more fun.
So this is a dive into body image and how that plays a key role in whether girls are physically active. And the key strategy in keeping girls and women in sport is letting them choose their uniforms.
When they ask girls what would get them involved or keep them in a sport, they want a choice of uniforms that make them feel ready for the sport and not overexposed. They want clothing that fits well and isn't unisex. And they want dark-coloured bottoms and uniforms from appropriate materials. It's certainly not a lot to ask, you would think.
Well, it's not a lot to ask to also be listened to. And isn't it wonderful that we're actually asking the girls and women who play the sports what is going to make you feel comfortable? Because I remember being really examined and exposed when I played sport, which won't surprise you to know was a long time ago. But, you know, it is, you're out there and you feel very exposed in whatever you're wearing. So I think it's really wonderful. Having more choice and empowering women and girls absolutely impacts female players' levels of comfort and confidence.
Sarah Stiles from the Office of Women in Sport and Recreation is absolutely right when she says there's nothing to lose by going down the path of choice, just more girls invested in sport for the cost of uniform, and they actually like what they're wearing. Well,
we can only hope that decision makers at various sports organisations take this information seriously and act on it.
One of the biggest pillars of health is sleep, GQ. But can you believe that 45% of Aussies don't feel like they're getting enough?
Just looking at the bags under people's eyes tells me that, Hinesy. Sleeplessness results from a multitude of reasons. One of the main ones is a busy, restless mind. The 21st century is a 24/7 hustle, but thankfully, Barkflow remedies may help calm the mind and help us get some shut-eye.
Their namesake, Dr. Edward Bark, is the one we can thank for unlocking the potential of flowers like vervain to help relax an overactive mind, and white chestnut to switch off those unwanted thoughts before we go to bed.
That's right. And bark flowers can help by calming the mind, relieving sleeplessness and settling the mental chatter, helping to improve sleep and ensure you wake up feeling refreshed.
That's the dream.
Barkflower remedies are found in spray or dropper form. When choosing, it's important to select the original method and potency, as these are Dr. Bark's unique specifications. Look for Australian-owned and made and alcohol-free, and that means it's suitable for the whole family.
Great tips, GQ. Now tell me, and I don't want you to be honest, do I have bags under my eyes?
Look, I can't tell a lie. I'd rather not answer.
Be careful. It's a long day ahead.
Yes.
All right, we have a long year ahead.
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Rest and Quiet Sleep with Dr. Bark's original potency flower remedies. When your thoughts keep you awake at night, calm your mind with Rest and Quiet Sleep. Look for the blue box.
That was Hinesy and GQ with a natural remedy for restlessness and a racing mind, Joe. Now, you remember a few weeks back, we met some remarkable Aussies who are smashing stereotypes when it comes to how people with disability are viewed by society.
One was lawyer and dad Sam Drummond, who faced questions many people couldn't imagine when deciding whether to have kids. A big factor was whether his disability would be passed on to his daughter.
He and his family feature in a book called We've Got This, which reflects the experiences of the 15% of Australian households who have a parent with a disability, Joe.
It's been one of my favourite segments of 2022, Darcy. We're happy to meet another of the book's contributors, Mandy McCracken. The mum of three acquired a disability in her late 30s and had a major impact on her life and her family dynamics. But one thing it didn't change was Mandy's love for her girls and her ever-present sense of humour. In 2013, Victoria's Mandy McCracken was cherishing the fast-paced life of a stay-at-home mum.
I was living the dream up in the country with my 3 kids and, yeah, really enjoying just being at home with the family. I had a great mothers group. I was on the parents and friends committee of my kids' primary school. I was doing aerobics. I was helping out around the neighbourhood. Yeah, having lots and lots of fun, really busy.
Mandy's routine showed no signs of slowing down until a mysterious illness changed everything.
It was a Wednesday. I was feeling a bit fluey. I cancelled my day and I hopped into bed and I stayed in bed for a couple of days and I was just feeling rotten. I had a temperature, throwing up, diarrhoea, and unfortunately it was sepsis and I had no idea. And all hell broke loose by Friday night, and on Saturday morning I was in a coma, and I was in a coma for 10 days. When I woke up, my hands and feet were black. And I ended up getting my amputation on my arms done first, and then I had my legs amputated a few months later, just below the knee.
Mandy remained in hospital away from her husband and 3 daughters for 10 months.
My world stopped, basically. Anything outside of my hospital room came to a complete halt because I was so focused on just trying to get back to living. Like, I couldn't sit up, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't do all that stuff.
All right, don't look at my cards.
Even thinking about the kids and life back at home wasn't front of mind because I knew actually Rod, my husband, would look after it. Like, he was doing a great job. But as a mum, I unfortunately sort of turned that off in my head because I was so focused on other stuff. So I had a nurse one day and she said to me, you know, you should call your kids and talk to your kids. And I got this massive wave of guilt. I was like, oh my God, I hadn't even thought of that, you know.
Can I have a card, please?
And I had to rebuild that relationship and work out what that looked like from a disability perspective. Like, how do you be a disabled parent?
Now, what are we making? Wholemeal berry scones.
The real challenge from a parenting perspective when Mandy came home was consciously finding avenues to make sure that she had a role to play rather than just diverting back to the practice you've been doing for 10 months.
All right, so how much do I have to chop? 60 grams.
My first day here, I came in on a wheelchair. Rod wheeled me in and he parked me on the wrong side of the kitchen bench. My side of the kitchen bench is in the kitchen, you know, where you do the cooking and preparing everything. And he put me on the guest side of the kitchen bench and I'm like, okay.
Oh, look at that, it's gonna work. I'm excited.
I'd gone from running the household, that was my job, and now I was the guest in my house and it felt really weird and it was a lot to process, and there was probably quite a bit of sort of anger of the situation and anger because I was watching the kids doing stuff. It's like, no, this is not how you do it.
She would always want it her way and you couldn't do it your own way. It had to be her way or else she would completely scream at you.
Beautiful.
She came in and it was different because we hadn't seen her for so long and she was new. She wasn't the same, I guess, and we were really young and that was completely new to us. So it was strange and you know what, I didn't really like it at all. You know, she wanted to have everything back to normal. I think we all did, but we couldn't. So we had to adapt and we did adapt. But that took time.
Here we go. How many people can you fit on an electric wheelchair? Oh, second work.
For each member from the Kraken family, humour has played an essential role in adjusting to the new normal.
We took the kids away for a family holiday down to the beach and my sister sent me a message saying, where are the photos? And it was 9 o'clock at night, so my husband pulled my arm off, shoved it in the fridge holding a beer and took a photo and sent it to my sister. I was like, right. This is on. Ever since we've been actually, you know, pulling off body parts and putting them out, doing fun things and taking photos and putting them up on social media, it's been great. Like, the kids have loved it.
Because Mandy's disability is very visual, our children are doing things out in public, like helping Mandy eat in a restaurant. Humour allows everyone an opportunity to recognise and process.
Oh, look at the eggplants. Look at them. Oh, they're doing really well.
The family, we all had to work out how this worked and what that looked like and get comfortable with it. And I can tell you there were some really good psych sessions that I had around where I can fit in, and the strength and benefit of me being here is still, even though I can't do some things, they still need a mum, and it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter what the situation is, but just that hug with your kids is so precious.
That's a cracker.
She's very positive about everything and very enthusiastic. Yeah, and supportive.
Yes, so it's 1 on that one.
Over time, Mandy and her family got their groove back. Then, a couple of years ago, a brand new challenge presented itself.
So during COVID, my eldest daughter Samantha decided that she wanted a bit of a change of school, and so we looked for a new school for her, and we ended up deciding on one in Melbourne, in the city. So we decided, right, her and I will go down to Melbourne and we'll live there Monday to Friday, and Rod can stay at home and look after the rest of them. And so we're living through 2 households at the moment, which actually, touch wood, is working really well.
Changing to a different school and living in Melbourne has meant that we've both had to step into like new placements in the house, which means I've had to take over like Dad's spot where it is, just helping her out with small things. And, you know, she's had to also adapt to looking after me and doing more things solo, I guess, and like, you know, shopping by herself to go and grab stuff for us or whatnot. For her to do that for me is like amazing. Like I couldn't imagine continuing where I was, and the fact that she's made a sacrifice just for me to be happy is a great ask.
Friday night, we jump in the car and come home again so that we can be with the rest of the family. It's a lot of organisation. My calendar is absolutely chockers with do this, do that, do this, do that. That's my job again. I'm back at it. So, you know, 8 years ago, things were so different, and now I'm back doing what I was doing before I got sick. Everybody's helping out, though. You know, we are a team. We're a team of 5, and I could not do this without their help. I think a lot of the able-bodied world believe that people with disabilities are incapable, and I would actually say we're probably more capable than the able-bodied world because we are dealing with challenge all the time. We are very capable of being parents, and please do not ever think that we couldn't.
We all associate the plant world with their physical attributes: colour, beauty, fragrance, flavour, even when they're a pesky, overgrown weed. But there's so much more to gain for our holistic health if you look a little deeper. With a heritage spanning 70 plus years, Thompsons delivers herbal expertise with formulations grounded in traditional use and backed by credible science. Their portfolio is made of premium products that have gone through rigorous quality control, resulting in a simple and convenient way to support your health and well-being. Some of the herbal powers harnessed include milk thistle for liver health. The herb St. John's wort helps reduce symptoms of mild anxiety and supports a healthy mood balance. Finally, ginkgo improves cognitive performance and memory in ageing individuals. More than ever, we are considering natural solutions for our health and well-being, and supplementation is the main way to get the best of Mother Nature. The new and exciting packaging from Thompsons aims to provide easy range navigation, meaning that you're making the best choice for your specific health needs. That's why they're the master herbalists.
Joe, living here in Melbourne, coffee is pretty much an obsession, I have to say. It's the brew of choice for about 99.9% of people here. I think I have to admit to being one of them, Joe. I love my start to the day. It's that ritual, the routine. I love the smell of a great cup of coffee in the morning. I can't go past it.
It's amazing to me because I love coffee, but I didn't start till I was well into my 40s. So somehow...
You start drinking coffee until your 40s?
Yes.
You had a few other vices, though, Joe, from what I hear.
That's not for now. As far as the coffee goes, I am now well and truly a part of the Melbourne cult of coffee lovers, and I've become a bit of a coffee snob. I can't believe I'm saying this. But because I only have one a day, it has to be a good one. And so there are some places I won't go because I don't want to risk it, because if I don't want to ruin my one coffee with an average coffee.
And I'm getting called out in my coffee shop when I order an almond latte.
Oh,
and
yeah.
an almond latte.
Is that not okay?
Well,
I have an almond latte.
I get called soft by my local barista. But anyway, earlier today, Jackie told us about how the CSIRO are helping develop medicinal and psychedelic mushrooms for mental health. Well, mushrooms are also the latest trend in brewing coffee, and it's said to be a great immunity booster and reduces anxiety, Joe. Now, have you gone the mushroom latte before?
I have not gone the mushroom latte, but I love the fact that people don't drink coffee because they find the caffeine gives them anxiety. But if you put mushroom in, it'll be okay.
Yes, apparently.
Is that how it works?
We've often joked about being addicted to coffee, and it seems like the health advice on how much is good for you gets a little bit muddied at times. So to serve up a double shot of good sense when it comes to our daily cup of Joe, here's our doctors, past and present.
Hi and welcome to Medicine Past, Present and Future. My name's Dr Nick and I'm the past.
And my name's Dr Isabel and I'm the future.
And together, we're the present. Now, Dr Isabel, this might sound a slightly odd question, but when did you last go a whole day without coffee?
Oh God, you're taking me back, Dr Nick. Maybe when I was 14 or 15.
And what's your preferred tipple?
Latte in the morning and a short macchiato after lunch. So the funny thing is, none of us start out liking caffeine. In fact, kids pretty much hate the taste, and yet somewhere along the line, 2/3 of Australian adults will consume at least one caffeinated beverage a day.
So let's talk caffeine, Dr Isabel. What actually is it?
Well, caffeine is a methylxanthine alkaloid that induces a reversible inhibition of the adenosine receptors.
In English?
Caffeine interferes with chemicals in your brain that cause drowsiness, making you feel more awake.
No, thank you. Now, legend has it that tea was first discovered by the Chinese over 5,000 years ago. But coffee wasn't first used commercially till about the 15th century in the Middle East. And it's become so popular that we now consume worldwide about 10 million tonnes of coffee every year. And Dr. Isabel, which countries do you think are the top coffee drinkers?
Oh, I would say maybe Brazil or Italy. No, wait, the US with all their Starbucks and everything.
Really good suggestions, but actually it's countries like the Netherlands, Norway, Finland and Sweden. Brazil and Italy aren't even in the top 10.
What about Australia?
Oh, we're way down the list.
Now, most of us get our caffeine from coffee, tea or caffeinated soft drinks such as cola. The average cup of coffee has about 100 milligrams of caffeine in it, a cup of tea about half of that, and a large cola drink is about the same as a cup of tea.
So is it possible to overdose on caffeine?
Well, you can overdose on pretty much anything, Dr. Nick, if you try hard enough, even water. But to overdose on caffeine, you'd probably have to drink about 50 cups of strong coffee in quick succession to do any real damage.
OK, so then what about addiction?
Again, depends a little bit on how you define addiction. Most people would be familiar with a craving for caffeine, and certainly if you stop, you might experience a withdrawal effect.
Actually, I remember I stayed with a friend years ago and I thought I had the flu because I was all achy and tired and I just went to bed. It turned out all his coffee was decaf, and so I was actually suffering from withdrawals.
Now, fortunately, these symptoms only last a day or two and your body can recover pretty easily with no trouble.
Now, there's a lot of talk about whether coffee is good or bad for you. Maybe it's harmful to your heart and your cardiovascular system, or maybe it's helpful in terms of cancers. Is there any truth to this?
Well, to sum up an enormous body of literature in one word, Dr. Nick, no. Unfortunately, there isn't any evidence to show that caffeine has any positive health effects, and likewise, there's no evidence to show that it has any negative health effects either.
Now, one of the positive effects that people think you can get from coffee is that it might help you sober up when you've been drinking too much.
Well, this isn't really true because the alcohol is still in your system. What people are referring to is that the caffeine can just make you feel more awake. It certainly doesn't make it any safer to drive or do other activity.
So what about things like pregnancy and breastfeeding?
It's a really, really good question. So caffeine does cross the placenta and it can be excreted into breast milk as well, but it's in relatively low quantities. So specialists recommend no more than 2 cups of coffee a day while you're breastfeeding or while you're pregnant, but it is safe.
And it might help keep mum sane. Oh, you look as though you're a bit overdue for your coffee.
I'm sorry, Dr. Nick, it's just my adenosine receptors.
Well, we better go and look after your adenosine receptors then.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick.
Thank you.
Well, today's focus has been on breakthroughs from psychedelic medicine to smashing stereotypes regarding parents with a disability and girls in sport. And Jackie, one female icon that's been around since the late 50s has undergone a pretty radical transformation in recent times as well.
That's right, Das. Indeed. First, she was given better career choices like an astronaut or the US president. Then her body shape and skin colour became more diverse to better reflect real life. Now, Barbie has taken another giant step in allowing more kids to recognise themselves in the doll. This month, the first Barbie featuring a behind-the-ear hearing aid is being released. Plus, the new line will also feature a Ken doll with a skin disorder that causes the loss of pigment cells.
Isn't this absolutely wonderful for children who might be living with a disability or children who might see themselves as different in some way to be able to see a toy that reflects them and their experience? It's absolutely critical.
Exactly right.
Yep, makes sense again. June will see the release of the more inclusive dolls. Plus, on another note, it's Bowel Cancer Awareness Month. There is a lot of fundraising options online, so get involved. And if you haven't been tested, go and do it right now. Now, Joe, you'll get the turning 50 present coming up soon in the mail.
I absolutely will, and I cannot wait to do that bowel cancer test. I will not leave it in the top drawer like so many of my friends have done. It's just a life-changing, life-saving test that's available for us. I can't wait to do it.
Glad you're so excited about that one, Joe. That's great. That's our show for today. Great to catch up with you, Jackie.
Thanks, Daz. Thanks, Joe.
Check out the House of Wellness website for more info on the show, and I'll be on the airwaves, as always, this Sunday with Gerald Quigley for the House of Wellness radio show.
Thanks, as always, to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. We'll see you again soon.